Hey everyone, Matt from the Jam Gamecast here. Today's video I want to bring to you is an impressions video on a game that I played for the Nintendo Switch. It's actually the first game I played for the Nintendo Switch, and that game is Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Um, so first what I'll do is I'll go over some dislikes I had for the game. Um, First thing I want to talk about is the camera angles in the game. They were really weird. There were some times where you could move the camera angle and spin it completely around. There's other times you couldn't move it. I understand why they had it that way. There were certain times where I think you couldn't move it because the way the camera was positioned, they were trying to like hide a secret, like a secret passage or a warp zone or something where you could go and find a chest or something like that for some upgrades or something like that. But it really affected me negatively in the battle. When you're battling, there are certain times where it'd be your turn to fire, and it would look like you're looking straight at the enemy that you wanted to attack, and you would fire, and only to have your shot go past whoever you thought you were shooting, and it would go, and hit someone behind them or, further back or something like that. And sometimes that really affected your battle strategy because you wanted to attack that certain enemy right at that certain time, whether they had low health or something, you're trying to clear them off the board. But it really affected it that way because, it happened to me a bunch of times where I thought I was going to hit a certain enemy, and it ended up going past them and hitting someone else. And that was kind of annoying. I mean, maybe it was my own fault in the fact that it does identify on the screen who you're aiming at, but sometimes I would just be, clicking through and kind of on automatic mode, and I wouldn't really necessarily pay attention on the screen above where it shows you who you're actually aiming at. I would just go by my line of sight, and I would end up completely missing the actual target I was trying to hit. So that was kind of annoying. Next, I wanted to talk about something else I disliked was the save feature. This game only saves after certain story events. It saves automatically on its own. Something big happens and it, auto saves. I didn't really like that because in games, especially in today's day and age, I like the ability to save wherever and whenever I want. Sometimes, especially on the Switch, a system like the Switch, I primarily play that on handheld mode, so, I could be anywhere and, something could come up and I need to save it real quick and, turn off the console. So that's why I like have the option to save wherever or whenever I am in the game. I prefer that over this option where it just like would save after certain, story events. Now, don't get me wrong, it happened quite often. I never really had too much of an issue. In fact, I don't think I had any issue at all where I lost any progress or anything because I couldn't save when I needed to. But that was just sort of annoying that I couldn't save whenever I wanted to. So next I'll move on to another dislike. And now this is probably the most glaring and to me the worst the worst dislike I have for the game. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed this game. It's not a game that I disliked, although I will ultimately say I was disappointed by the game, and I'll kind of explain myself further at the end of my impressions. But this is one of the major issues I had with the game. It needed more of a story. Now they explain how it all gets set up, and now this might be heading into spoiler territory, so if you didn't play the game and you plan on playing it, you might want to skip the rest of this. But basically they explain how the rabbits ended up in the Mushroom Kingdom. Essentially they have like this time machine. It's like the washing time machine or washing machine time machine or something like that. And they end up in a Mario fan's place where this Mario fan's sort of an inventor, and they invented a visor that can fuse things together. So the Rabbids end up with this visor, and they essentially end up warping themselves with a Mario poster that's on the wall, and they end up in the Mushroom Kingdom, which is fine. That's a clever, setup. But, from there, it doesn't really go anywhere. That's pretty much all you're left with. You're like, okay, well, I know why the Rabbids are in the Mushroom Kingdom, but that's all you really get. And that kind of leads me into the ending too. The ending's kind of disappointing because, you defeat the final boss, and everyone's like, "Yay, it's over." They have like a little celebration and everything, but then they don't explain anything further. They don't explain, okay, do they fix all the destruction that the Rabbids caused in the Mario Kingdom? Do the Rabbids end up getting home and, going home and leaving the Mushroom Kingdom? They don't explain any of that. It just kind of ends, you're like, yay, beat the last boss, okay, bye. And that's sort of how it is. Now, maybe that's on purpose. Maybe, they'll have sequels to the game. I know that this game was pretty popular, and I believe it sold pretty well. So maybe they're planning on sequels, which would be fine with me. I'd play some sequels to the game as well. I mean, I enjoyed it that much that where I would play sequels. And one last dislike I want to talk about is kind of like a little thing. It's not really necessarily a big issue, but there's 8 available players that you can use in the game. Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Yoshi, and then a rabbit version of each one of those characters. But they only let you have 3 playable characters in your party for battles. And okay, at the beginning of the game, I can see that because you only really start out with 3 characters. But by the end, I thought, well, maybe they should let you have at least 1 more, even maybe 2 more, 4 or 5 playable characters during a battle. 3 just seemed kind of, not enough, especially at the end of the game where you have all these other characters available. It seemed like kind of a waste because you weren't really using a lot of the characters that often. So that's just some dislikes I had for the game. Now, I mean, like I said, I did like the game, and I'll talk about some portions of the game that I did like. First of all, it's a cool mashup, or a crossover, if you will, to use a comic book term. I always really enjoyed, random crossovers. That might be the comic book fan in me coming out, but I always enjoyed where they took 2 completely different things that you never thought would ever appear together in something, and they just throw them together. And I think this time, in this case, it worked. It's a fun game. The Rabbids are really funny. I believe they worked well and played off of Mario and the Mushroom Kingdom characters really well. So it's a cool crossover. Another thing that I really liked about the game is that Bowser Jr. is the main villain in the game. It was kind of a nice switch from the usual Mario games where Bowser is the villain. In this case, it was Bowser Jr. Bowser's away on vacation, so Bowser Jr. ends up kind of being the main antagonist during the game, which I thought was really cool. So yeah, those are just a couple things that I really liked about the game. Now, I said I would touch on this later. Like I said, I did like the game. I enjoyed playing it. I would recommend it if you're an RPG fan or strategy RPG fan. But overall, I just feel like I was a little disappointed by the game, and I think that had to do with the story kind of being lackluster. When they first announced this game at E3, I was very hyped up for the game. It was actually the game I was most excited for coming out of the last E3. But the lack of story just kind of, there wasn't enough for me. So it was a cool game, but it was a little lackluster, but still a good game. And like I said, if you like RPGs or strategy RPGs, definitely give this one a try. So until next time, if you liked my impression videos, please give the channel a like and subscribe. I'll be doing more impression videos. Me and my brother have our podcast that we do. I'm also maybe thinking of doing some other type of videos. One thing I was thinking about doing is doing maybe a video on other hobbies that I have or something like that. So, if you have any ideas, please leave us a comment, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.